Alright, we're back again with another episode of the Gaming Pulpit, and today we're going to be talking about the cancellation of PlayStation experience and what it actually means. Along with that, we're going to be talking about like the refresh consoles, the PlayStation Pro and the Xbox One X, and what does it mean to actually buy that console so close to the end of this console generation, at least really for the Xbox One X. It was a year after. But we digress there. And then lastly, what would it take for you to actually buy next generation consoles? Like, what would be your definitive factor to say that now I got my money worth? So let's just get ready and get started. Let's dive in. So there's been a lot of speculation as to why Sony isn't having another PlayStation experience, and I don't think it's that difficult to really wrap your mind around why there isn't one. We all knew this is pretty much coming. We all know that the next generation consoles are most likely, at the latest, is probably going to be in 2020. I guess the question really is it 2019 or is it 2020? But before I even go on to that, you gotta think about it like this too. They showed The Last of Us, Death Stranding, Days Gone, and what's the other one? Ghost of Tsushima. So they showed those four. Those four, if I'm not mistaken, were going to be the big ones that was going to pretty much end the console generation and end it off on a high note. The Last of Us Part 2, if I didn't say that, so that's probably what I was missing. And it would be kind of foolish to release another blockbuster game. I don't think it's necessary. And last year we had like the comfy couch edition of PlayStation Experience where they basically showed nothing. What else could they show? More Last of Us, more Ghost of Tsushima. I guess they could show that. Or I guess it's just not enough content to spend that much money on. So I can totally feel them. But it led to a lot of discussion as to like why. What exactly does it mean for everybody? What does it mean that they're not showing it? And I just feel like it's coming to a generation close. I don't think that it really spells out anything, to be honest with you, in terms of like releasing a console in 2019. I don't think that it's going to be the case. I don't think that they are going to release a console in 2019. I don't think the technology is quite there yet to where they want it to have so much of an impact. So I think both Microsoft and Sony would have to wait a year. A little bit iffy on Microsoft, so I don't know what they're going to do. But it would be really stupid for them to actually release a next generation console after they just released Xbox One X a year ago. That wouldn't make any sense, and that would be totally, I mean, it's not without the realms of possibility, but it will totally betray their fans, which sometimes I wonder about that. Looks like they don't really give a fuck about their fans. That being said, I guess that's really it. I don't think that there's anything to it, honestly. And if you bought, I'm just curious if you run across this video, if you actually bought a next generation, or not just the refresh console, Xbox One X and PlayStation Pro, like, how do you feel about that exactly? Like, what is it? Are you salty that it's possible? You know, are you really salty about if it's possible that, I mean, that next generation could come in 2019? I mean, I would say it was really cool for Sony to release it halfway into the life cycle before they, release the Pro. It's a nice little boost, and it's funny too because when you look, people misunderstand what the refresh consoles were. You know what I mean? People think that it's supposed to extend the generation. I would say that Sony's idea was for it to extend the generation, and Microsoft was reactionary. And the specs that they wanted, it would have to come a year later, and they were just trying to gobble up, third-party support in that regard. So I mean, it's it would be salty for them to release it in 2019. I do think half the generation into it, a refresh console is the better bet. You should definitely do it that way. But you know, that's that. But I also want to talk about before this video ends, since we only got like 8 minutes here. What would it take for you to buy a next generation console? I know for me, and you can leave this in the comments too if you get, you know, if you find this video. Oh gosh. What would it take for me? Honestly, it would be, I mean, obviously graphics. But when I played Horizon Zero Dawn, there was a lot of little things that I would love for the console to have been able to do. They didn't have enough memory to do it, like point blank period. They didn't have enough memory. For instance, you wanted a flyable ride in the game, a mount, so to speak, and you couldn't really get that because the game couldn't stream fast enough. You know what I mean? Or you couldn't, or the level of details didn't change fast enough, and you had like blurry textures and stuff like that. It would be nice to have a really cohesive experience. I would love to have something like that. I think that'll be really, really cool, but unfortunately, we don't have the speed in memory, number one, and number two, we don't have enough of it. So what I would want out of next generation, obviously the 4K. I love the clear image, especially with somebody that needs glasses, and more memory to do a lot of things. And obviously processing physics is something really, really big. Blasting through walls and all this other stuff. Maybe mix a little bit of voxel type action, sort of like Minecraft or No Man's Sky, something like that. That'd be really, really cool. Having bigger environments, having more to do in those environments. You know, people say that The Last of Us looks really, really good, and it does. But it's not an open world game. It's not an open world game, point blank period. You're not gonna ever get to that. Graphical fidelity with these consoles. So that's what I think. And then for the operating system, I would love for it to actually you be able to multitask a little bit, sort of like what Xbox had, but not impede on, like they should have like with the Pro, at least slower memory so you can do more just for the operating system wise. You know what I mean? Stuff like streaming, doing this, what I'm doing now is I'm on a share factory. That'll be really, really awesome to do. I just think that there's not enough memory to do it. There's not enough memory to do it at all. And that is unfortunate as fuck. That being said, leave it in the comments. Let me know. Let me know exactly what you guys would do. What would you believe a next generation console is? Lastly, I want to talk about, this is one little bonus here, is the crossplay. Everybody's talking about the whole crossplay thing, and honestly, I don't think people know. I mean, we all know that there's some sort of contract in the background as to what they're doing. We know that there's a contract in the background as to why they allowed it. It was already dying down, so for them to just come out of nowhere and say it, some kind of agreement must have happened. And what I think is when a developer makes DLC that's cross-platform, both parties get the money. That's what I believe is going to happen. And it's going to end up jacking up the prices for the developers. I know it is. You just know it is. But I think that those types of agreements where the DLC, the money that the developers get for the DLC, they have to spend more money. They have to spend more moolah to make that shit work. So for things like DLC and multiplayer, it's going to be an expensive endeavor. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you liked about the video, what you disliked about the video, and if you liked it, sub.